Hello, my name is Carlos Duarte. It is truly a pleasure to be here at the AMPS Conference Prague, Heritage Past and Present, Built and Social, a conference on culture, history, art, and design. I am presenting the outcomes of a study named Bioclimatic References of the 18th Century Historical Pombaline Architecture in Lisbon, with my co-author, Professor António Morais. Despite being a period of Portugal history widely studied, there is a lack of publications addressing references concerning bioclimatic architectural and design principles in key documents from that period, something that we intend to fill. Additionally, we intend to introduce the concept of bioclimatic ethic, which I will cover later. With its roots in vernacular construction, bioclimatic architecture finds its ground on the formal, conceptual, and material suitability of a building to the environment and climate of its location, to ensure thermal comfort and high energy performance. Through the optimized use of available natural resources, each region developed its own architecture, and with time and continuous improvement became part of people's memories and identities. All over the world, we observe that the constructions and shelters of countless civilizations have indelibly marked the landscape, showing a correlation between the built form, matter, and climatic conditions of each region. Despite the novelty of the term bioclimatic architecture, its core principles are supported by hundreds of years of empirical experience. Ancient or historical buildings have in their conception a range of bioclimatic principles that is worthwhile analyzing and understanding before any kind of invasive intervention. The 18th century Pombaline architecture in Lisbon is no exception to this. The Pombaline architecture appears by the hand of Sebastião José de Carvalho e Melo, also known as Marquês de Pombal. It was the political elite's response to the earthquake that devastated Lisbon downtown in 1755. The reply to this was the Plan of 1758, whose structure is based on the orthogonal layout of a set of rectangular blocks. This plan is considered a forerunner of modern urban planning that breaks with the pre-existing vernacular morphology and paves the way to the 19th century city at a social, formal, and functional level. One of the plan goals was to increase Baixa salubrity levels. The air and light were among the guiding principles of the new Lisbon. The Baixa new design with wide and straight streets facing the river and the sun was the recipe found to carry out this purpose. It is likely that the bioclimatic principles observed in vernacular constructions and consolidated with time and countless experiences, as well as the vivid memory concerning the old city condition of decay, provided an empirical knowledge base to support the new design. This idea is highlighted by Mascarenhas when he says that ancient buildings were empirical constructions based and improved with experience, and reinforced by França by referring that the word empiricism always returns when you try to unveil closely the Pombaline reality, in any plan at any level that it is. Over time, with the argument of art adaptation to the contemporary society, most of the Pombaline buildings in Lisbon downtown have been continuously intervened upon through ill-founded operations with harmful consequences not only for their heritage value, but also its environmental balance. Some of these led to disruptions in indoor ventilation patterns and sunlight due to the growth in height, terraces, chaotic occupation, and unregulated changes and adaptations in indoor layouts, reduction in the fireproof capacity and earthquake resistance capacity, disruption in the groundwater level of the area with the construction of basements, deterioration of existing rendering mortars due to introduction of new modern infrastructures such as lighting, telecommunications, and HVAC devices, just to name a few. What this intervention shows us is the lack of knowledge regarding bioclimatic behavior in the training of architects and engineers concerning historical buildings. They are unaware of the bioclimatic and environmental consequences of their actions. Using the Pombaline as an example, our study aims to lay the theoretical foundations for a bioclimatic ethic approach when intervening in historical buildings by identifying references in historical documentation of this period that are evidence worth respecting and keeping. One of these documents is the 1756 dissertation by Manuel de Maia, which contains some passages concerning this subject. In the first part, Maia mentions the relation between the building's height versus street width, where security-related issues assume the primary concern, but whose outcomes influences the amount of sunlight and radiation received and the local wind patterns. Also, the response to the constant floods that occurred at high tide were solved by landfilling using the debris of the collapsed buildings during the earthquake. In the second part, Maia expresses distress about the conditions of Rua Nova dos Ferros and Rocio due to a problem of stagnant waters, harmful to the air quality and the inhabitant overall health. In the third part, Maia discusses the salubrity topic in depth, mainly regarding solving the problem of bad smells and the poor air quality of the entire area. To this end, he points out three possible solutions. The last one, the third, denotes the idea of a common external area in each block, where garbage is thrown from the dwellings and collected once a year in autumn. In fact, the implementation of this third measure has also proved to be decisive for cross-ventilation purposes inside the dwellings. Also in the third part, the 18 and 19 points, Maia refers to the third prospectus, drawing of the building facades in Baixa and Terreiro do Paço, foreseeing the existence of porticos or arched galleries against the inclemencies of weather. Despite being focused on security features, Maia does not disregard the climatic issues. On the contrary, they influence and shape the architectural image of this area. It is certain that from a bioclimatic perspective, the gesture of designing arched galleries would provide shelter from the rain and shade from the sun, influencing the wind pattern and temperature recorded at street level. Another document worth referring is the 1758 King's Charter of May the 12th, mainly the sixth point, where are expressed concerns of this nature. It refers to a compensation to be paid to owners of buildings located in less salubrious areas by those who own buildings in locations that receive the benefits of less danger in earthquakes and fire, of greater clarity of light, of greater freedom of air, of greater ease in driving, of greater frequency in passing, and of greater value. Another document, the 1758 Reconstruction Plan, we can find on the 14th point the description of the building heights, floors, proportions, and fenestrations in detail, which are decisive to achieve the desired quality standards. On the 18th point, the plan explained the utter importance and need for cross streets, streets that are perpendicular to the main streets, concerning the city service and for the freedom of air and light, even for the inhabitants of the main street. In accordance with this, there are urban design concerns that favor the ventilation and luminosity of Baixa public space, such as the main street north-south orientation and proximity to the Tagus River that favor both the penetration wind from the north and the sea breezes from the south, improving outdoor thermal comfort during the hot season. The Pombaline architecture embodies the military spirit of its authors, expressed in the rigor, austerity, repetition, and mass production of constructive elements. This trait crosses all scales of Pombaline composition, where The design of the facades of the buildings is always that of the street facades, which is repeated block by block. Additionally, it incorporates features from the traditional Portuguese architecture since the Romanesque period, an unornamented, heavy, and marked horizontal proportion. This results from the consolidation of a way of building, considering the Portuguese climate specificities, ending in a constructed system of serene and pragmatic classic design, technically prefabricated, anti-seismic and anti-fire, heralding a pre-industrial modernity. Finally, regarding composition and style, we must highlight the influences of the architectural treatises of that period, with a special mention for the Serlian style by the Italian Sebastiano Serlio and the French architectural treatise of the late 17th and 18th centuries of Augustin Charles d'Avilés, among others. Avilés' treatise poses the major influence, mainly in fenestrations and their compositional criteria. According to Eduardo Duarte, windows on the bel étage, the first floor, should be taller than the ones on the upper floors, and these should decrease in size due to certain mathematical propositions. In this context, Avilés makes considerations that fall under the bioclimatic domain, addressing that window size and proportions should be carefully considered. Otherwise, it can lead to overheating or overcooling of indoor spaces and excess or deficit of natural light. The tuning of this proportion is key, as large or too wide fenestrations can structurally compromise the external wall. Also, Avilés' influence is noted in the roof component, mainly in the Mardeliana mansard type, named after the architect Carlos Mardel, and in the facade's aesthetics, clean, simple, and restrained in decoration without protruding elements. These features impact indoor and outdoor comfort as they affect ventilation rates, wind patterns, and the amount of sunlight and radiation. Understanding and preserving bioclimatic principles in a contemporary intervention is the first step to reach comfortable and high-quality energy retrofits, paving the way towards near zero or even zero energy building standards. We advocate that uninformed interventions have the power to disrupt the bioclimatic balance of an historical building, interfering with the primordial idea that relates the built form with its surroundings, ending in harmful consequences at an agrothermal and energy performance level. Therefore, the architect and the engineer must sustain its practice with a bioclimatic ethical approach when retrofitting sensible built fabric. They must be aware and able to interpret past bioclimatic references and gestures as a path to guide an intervention toward the constructive and architectural truth. If the preservation of architectural features, construction techniques, materials and colors, speciality, and urban surroundings are consolidated practices and part of conservation principles stated in the charters of ICOMOS and UNESCO, then why is the quest for its bioclimatic core ideas often forgotten and disregarded? Is this dimension even considered when discussing authenticity in buildings? Do we need to foster a culture that relies on bioclimatic ethic when doing an energy retrofit? These are some of the questions we'd like to open for discussion. With greater or lesser subtlety, it is evident that the main actors involved in Lisbon reconstruction considered bioclimatic principles displayed at an urban and architectural level. Such evidence is noticeable in passages from Maia, namely in the first, second, and especially third part of his dissertation, and in the key documents of 1758 King's Charter and Plan Documentation, in short but revealing passages concerning the level of salubrity intended for the outdoor and indoor space. Additionally, The Cerulean style and the late 17th and 18th century Avila architectural treatise, both sources of inspiration for the plan authors, also exhibit evidences to support this claim. Our study intends to raise the awareness of existing bioclimatic core principles among architects and engineers involved in historical building retrofits, particularly in Pombaline buildings. We stand that deepening the knowledge of past bioclimatic references enables the emergence of a culture based on bioclimatic ethic, where its understanding is critical to ensure today's thermal and energy quality standards, restore or maintain the building environmental balance with its surroundings, and, for what is more important, preserve its authenticity and heritage value for future generations. This work is financed by national funds through FCT, Fundação para a Ciência e Tecnologia, and the Research Center of Architect, Urbanism and Design. A special acknowledgement to Professor Vitor Lopes dos Santos, who kindly provided his PhD thesis, enabling the consultation of key documents for the development of this study. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions or want to share some of your thoughts with me, please feel free to contact me at any time. Thank you.